must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Good afternoon to you, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Miriam Ogutu. The show is Diaspora Dispatches. We get to bring you the latest news from the continent of Africa. It is the 13th of September 2021, and today being a Monday, I do have so much in store for you that I need to bring you up to date, that things that happened over the weekend, and we shall start our bulletin from Guinea. And Guinea's military junta, which took power last week, has announced a toll-free number for civilians to report any abuses by the security forces. The number 100 is available to all telephone operators in Guinea. The junta announced a 4-day consultation program with different groups starting Tuesday. The meeting will involve religious leaders, civil society groups, and business people, among other groups. The junta has in the past said it was committed to the transition process. A mission of the West African Regional Group, ECOWAS, met the junta on Friday and said that the deposed President Alpha Conde was in good health. We head over to Tanzania, where President Samia Suluhu has announced the country's first woman defense minister. Esther Gomena Tax replaces Elias Kwandikwa, who died in August. The president also revoked the appointment of 3 cabinet ministers and appointed a new attorney general. Those sacked are the Communication Minister Faustin Ndugulile, Leonard Chamuriho for Transport, and Medad Kalimani for Energy. President Suluhu brought back January Makamba, whose appointment had been revoked by former President John Pombe Magufuli. Mr. Makamba will now head the Energy Ministry. And then we head over to South Africa, and President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced the easing of some restrictions that have been placed to curb the spread of coronavirus. In a televised address, the president said due to a decline in infections, an overnight curfew will be shortened, alcohol restrictions will be eased, and larger gatherings allowed. He said the supply of vaccines was no longer a constraint and called on people to play their part in stopping the spread of the virus by coming forward to get the jab. He added that the authorities are looking for ways to introduce vaccine passports, which can be used as evidence of vaccination for various purposes, raising fears that vaccines will be compulsory. About 1 in every vaccinated, a far higher rate than elsewhere in Africa. We move over to Niger, where human rights group Amnesty International says attacks by Islamist militants in western Niger have worsened significantly since the start of the year, with children increasingly targeted. A report by the group says the conflict in the Tillaberi region, which borders Mali and Burkina Faso, is having a devastating impact. More than 5,000 civilians died between 1st of January to 29th July this year from conflicts in the region, exceeding the 397 people killed in 2020, the report added. Over 60 children have been killed by armed groups in the tri-border area, it adds. One jihadist group linked to Al-Qaeda has intensified its effort to recruit boys to its ranks, according to Amnesty. The group lures young men and boys aged between 15 and 17 or younger by using incentives such as food, money, and clothes. And then we go to Chad, where protesters marching against the junta in Chad took to the streets of the capital, N'Djamena. The AFP news agency has reported the country is currently being governed by what's known as the Transitional Military Council under the leadership of Mahamat Idris Deby Itno. He came to power after the death of his father, Idris Deby Itno, in April, who had been president since 1990. The TMC's opponents see its continued rule as a power grab. They accuse France of being behind the junta. AFP News says the marchers were chanting "Chad is not a kingdom" and no to French support for the Deby father and son system. The junta has said there will be elections after 18-month dialogue, but this has not started, and the body that's supposed to draw up a new constitution has not been formed yet. And that is according to the report by AFP News. We head over to Angola. Hundreds of opposition supporters held a march in the Angolan capital Luanda over the weekend to protest against changes to electoral laws. Under the new legislation, votes will be tallied centrally instead of being counted in the regions. Critics say this is to reduce transparency. The demonstration was organized by the main opposition UNITA party and joined by other groups. UNITA has suggested the introduction of measures to counter electoral fraud, including biometric voter identification and the involvement of civil society in ballot counting. President João Lourenço is expected to run for a second term in next year's poll. And then we go to Ivory Coast, and Charles Konan Barney, who served as Ivory Coast Prime Minister from 2005 to 2007, has died in a capital in Paris after he had contracted COVID-19. The AFP news agency quotes aides as saying. President Alassane Ouattara paid tribute to Mr. Konan Barney, who died at the age of 78, saying on Twitter that his friend and brother was a great servant of the state who made an important contribution to national reconciliation. As well as a serving Prime Minister, Mr. Konan Barney also headed the Commission for Dialogue, Truth and Reconciliation that was set up after the violence that followed the disputed 2010 elections in Ivory Coast. And then we head back on to Guinea, and a leading figure in Guinea's opposition on Saturday urged the regional bloc ECOWAS not to impose economic sanctions on Guinea's new military regime, describing the recent coup as a welcome development. The junta does not deserve to be sanctioned because it put to an end a situation of lawlessness that was according to former Prime Minister Cellou Dalein Diallo. Diallo, who ran unsuccessfully against the deposed leader Alpha Conde 3 times in successive presidential elections, told the AFP that there was no other options left out but a coup. Guinea's ruling military has been coming under growing diplomatic pressure after special forces led by Lieutenant Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya seized power last Sunday and arrested Conde. ECOWAS suspended Guinea on Wednesday, and on Friday the African Union followed suit. ECOWAS has suspended a decision on economic sanctions until it gets a report from a fact-finding mission sent to Guinea. And then we go to Tunisia, where President Kais Saied announced on Saturday night that the appointment as soon as possible of a new government, and mentioned a few reform of the constitution during a walkabout in Tunisia. A new government will be formed as soon as possible after selecting the most honest personalities, said Mr. Saied to Watania and Sky News Arabia Television after strolling under guard on Bougoubia Avenue, which crosses the heart of the capital, Tunis. On 25th of July, Mr. Saied dismissed the Prime Minister, suspended the activities of Parliament, and also took over the judiciary for a month renewable before extending these measures on 24th August until further notice. But on Saturday evening, he did not give a precise date for the formation of the government, adding that we are continuing the search for personalities who will assume these responsibilities. And then we go to Zimbabwe, where mixed reactions are greeting a Zimbabwean court ruling that sided with traditional chiefs seeking to exhume the remains of ex-President Robert Mugabe from his home village and move them to the capital, going against the family's wishes. Mugabe was buried in his rural home village of Kutama, about 90 kilometers west of Harare, in September 2019, after weeks of wrangling over his final resting place. Mugabe's wife Grace and other family members had opposed government plans to bury the former leader at the National Heroes Acre in capital. But while they eventually got their way, a traditional court in May fined the widow 5 cows and 2 goats for improperly burying her husband and called for his exhumation. 3 of Mugabe's children challenged that order in a magistrate court, which sided with the chiefs on Friday. And then we head over to the Central African Republic, where a special court on Friday accused the former leader of a key militia in the Central African Republic of crimes against humanity at the height of the civil war in the country. A former Captain Eugene Barrett Ngaikoset, arrested nearly a week ago, was once a commander of the guard of President Francois Bozize, who was toppled in 2013 by the Seleka coalition of largely Muslim armed groups. He then became an important leader of the largely Christian and animist anti-Balaka militias, which Bozize founded to fight the Seleka. The two groups plunged the country into a bloody civil war, with the United Nations accusing them in 2015 of having committed war crimes and crimes against humanity between 2015 and 2019. Guy Cosset, arrested September 4th just outside the capital Bangui, was accused of crimes against humanity by two judges of the Special Criminal Court, the tribunal said in a statement. And then we go to South Sudan, and the Vice President in charge of Economic Cluster has called on the new sworn-in Secretary General of the ruling party to work towards revamping the SPLM lost glory. Dr. James Wani-Iga says that Peter Lam both should work to fulfill both the need of the SPLM party and that of South Sudanese. The SPLM has appointed Peter Lam both as its new acting Secretary General last month. He replaces Jema Nunu Kumba, who was appointed Speaker of the National Assembly. Political analysts, economists and citizens have often blamed the ruling party SPLM from deviating from its vision. The SPLM has ruled South Sudan for more than 15 years now. In 2005, the SPLM, through its former leader, pledged to rebuild the war-devastated South Sudan using existing wealth. Both South Sudanese argued that the SPLM today is a complete opposite of its democratic principles that were envisioned during the liberation struggle. And then we head back over to Ivory Coast, where Charles Blé Goude, a former right-hand man to Ivory Coast's ex-president Laurent Gbagbo, is demanding compensation from the International Criminal Court, ICC, after being charged and acquitted of crimes against humanity, his lawyer said on Friday. Blé Goude and Gbagbo were acquitted by the court in March over charges arising from post-election violence in Ivory Coast in 2011. Goude's legal team also spoke of numerous failures of the Office of the Prosecutor that have violated his fundamental rights. Blé Goude, a former youth militia leader, now hopes that his case can serve as an example to call the Office of the Prosecutor of the ICC not to pursue pre-constructed cases which are unconvincing and not based on evidence, his lawyers said in a statement. And then we go to Nigeria, where some gunmen suspected to be herdsmen were said to have invaded a Jim village in the Atiop chiefdom of Zango Kataf local government area of Kaduna State, killing 12 persons. The latest attack, a source said, happened on Sunday evening during a heavy downpour. Although there was no official confirmation from either the state government or the state police commandant, the spokesperson of the Southern Kaduna People's Union, Sokapu, Mr. Luka Biniyat, confirmed this information to the local media. And then still staying with Nigeria, and the Anambra State Governor Willie Obiano has threatened to seal banks and punish market and motor park leaders who will dare stay at home today or any day day so declared by the indigenous people of Biafra. He directed banks, markets and motor parks in the state to be in operation today. The governor, who said the sit-at-home compliance adversely affected the gross domestic product and the general economy of the state, maintained that banks that fail to open on such a day will be sealed for a week, adding that if such a bank refuses to open subsequently, they will be permanently closed. While addressing transport leaders at the Governor's Lodge, Anamdi, on Sunday, the governor cautioned against further adherence to the order, which he said had become inimical to the state. And that is the latest news from across Africa. So, Biafrans, you'll be threatened there. And Anambra State Governor is saying enough with the sit at home, because when you all sit at home on Monday, it affects the financial situation of Anambra State. So he's saying enough is enough. So any bank, any market, any business entity that decides not to open today will face the full wrath of that state there and will be punished. So he particularly spoke to the banks. He said, if you refuse to open today, then your bank will will be closed for a week. And if you subsequently continue not opening in the coming Mondays, then there are possibilities that they will shut you and you can take your business elsewhere in Nigeria and move out of a number of states. And I know a lot of you who are watching this afternoon Biafrans, I can tell. And I'm sure you have a lot to say about that order and that threat by the Anambra State governor. Let me know what you think about that. He's saying anybody who dares to obey the sit-at-home order, which I think the last time I checked, I think the leadership of IPOB really had said that it's a choice. You can sit at home or you can go on about your business. It was not made mandatory, but I guess the Biafrans or the people who, the IPOBians and other groups who are, affiliated have continued to observe these sit-at-home orders. So that is affecting the economic dynamics of a number of states and other states. And the governor is not very happy about that, okay? And so South Sudan, we've seen a vice president for economic cluster, Mr. Dr. James Wani Eager, saying that it's about time that SPLM went back to its vision. SPLM went back. I feel like the vision of SPLM and what the crafters and the people who were fighting for the secession of South Sudan really wanted, that vision appears it must have died when Dr. John Garang died in that ill-fated, flight plane crash that happened. Because what you see right now is so different from what you could hear them talk about back then, all right? Things have really changed. So I think last week on Thursday, while we were talking about the same matter, President Salva Kiir had come out and expressed his disdain and his concern. And he particularly used a very choice of words that I found to be very interesting. And he said, he feels very ashamed that SPLM is not living up to the expectation of the people. And I said, that is very true. And has he just realized that is the case right now in South Sudan? Because what is happening in the current leadership and the crop of people we see at the helm of South Sudan is really out of tune with what we saw being agitated for by the founders, especially by Dr. John Garang. It's quite different. So now the other vice president, Dr. James Wani, is saying now that they have a new Secretary General, a new acting Secretary General, so it's about time that they revamped the SPLM's lost glory. I don't know how you're planning to do that, but well, it's possible you can do that. But I think, revamping the lost glory of SPLM it has nothing to do with, with a lot of things that perhaps people would see. You have to go back to the aspirations. You have to go back and see what vision, what dream did the founders, did the agitators for secession of South Sudan had for the people of South Sudan. You have to go back there because you cannot continue walking in this path that has refused to work for the people of South Sudan. And right now, things are just hanging on a balance. We don't even know the progress of the peace process. We don't know how far things are right now because President Salva Kiir and his leadership there are not telling us, if at all, any progress which have been made so far. A lot of things that they're supposed to be implementing that were contained in the revitalized peace agreement have not been implemented. So I'd like to know the latest updates from the leadership of South Sudan. They can tell us what's happening there, but I guess nothing much is happening. That's why they're not talking. And so, Dr. James Wani Eager, before you can get back to or go back to revamping the SPLM's lost glory, you have to go back to the core. Why did the people of South Sudan want to secede from the larger Sudan? All right? Why? South Sudanese wanted a better life. South Sudanese wanted a place where they can feel they all belong. South Sudanese wanted a place where they felt at home and safe. And is that what you're seeing the people of South Sudan enjoy today? No. In fact, far from it. What you see is exact opposite of that. So you have to go back to the core and start looking at, especially the leadership of the people of South Sudan, look at what really is ailing South Sudan. Where did the rain started beating the country? Where did things go wrong? I think with the death of the late John Garang, things changed. But it's possible you can go back and pick it up and see how can we continue with this vision? How can we continue working on ensuring our people are okay? And let the people be the core of why you're even in leadership, which is not the case in South Sudan. Anyway, okay, so a former right-hand man of Laurent Gbagbo, former president of Ivory Coast, who was acquitted on Friday, is now said to sue the ICC over what they say is the violation of his fundamental rights. He was acquitted, and initially he was charged with crimes against humanity and other charges. After the bloody, a civil war that broke up in 2011 after the disputed elections, where Laurent Gbagbo did not want to leave power, and Alassane Ouattara came into power. And so then Alassane Ouattara last year, his term ended, and he decided, no, he does not want to go home, so he was just going to change the constitution. Him and now this deposed leader, Alpha Conde, they changed the constitution last year to allow them run for an illegal third term. All right. And so Gbagbo also was released and was acquitted. And so his former right-hand man is saying that he's going to sue the ICC over, what he says were the ICC violated his fundamental human rights. Okay, so this story from Zimbabwe now, can they just let Robert Mugabe to rest? Because the traditional leaders from his, I think, clan or his tribe or somewhere, all right, Robert Mugabe, they're challenged and they were not very happy with the move that the family took to bury Robert Mugabe in his ancestral home, because according to the family and according to the wife, Grace Mugabe, those were the wishes of Robert Mugabe, to be buried in his rural home. Remember, after he was removed from power, he was not very happy with the current leadership. So I think as much as there's an agreement that he was supposed to be buried at the Heroes Acre in Harare, but I think due to how things went and how he was removed and how things worked out, he said, no, when I die, I want to be buried back to my rural area, back to where my ancestors are. And that did not sit very well. Remember, there was a tug of a push and pull for nearly a month before Mugabe was buried. And then finally, he was buried. So now there was a ruling that was made last week in a Zimbabwean court that sided with the traditional chiefs, seeking now to exhume the remains of ex-President Robert Mugabe from his village home, to bring it and bury it in the capital in what they call the National Heroes Acre in Harare. And initially, the traditional chiefs had, fined Grace Mugabe 5 cows and 2 goats for going against the traditions, for improperly burying her husband, and call for his exhumation. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of this story. But if Mugabe's wish was to be buried at his rural home, so who is the court to want to change that? If that is what truly Mugabe wanted, they should just let that be. Why do you have to insist? You have to respect, the departed wishes, if that is what he wanted, because he had fallen out with the government anyways. He had fallen out with the government, so he did not, even his funeral, he really did not want the participation of key officials in ZANU-PF, who he felt had betrayed him to the last minute. So he died a very bitter man. And so now you're going to exhume his body and come bury it to a place that perhaps he did not want to be buried. I think you should just let the dead rest in peace, I think. I don't think there's any, I don't know, but matters of traditions. But anyway. But so we'll see how that will play out. I don't know what Grace Mugabe will have to say about that. And if at all she will agree for the remains of her husband to be exhumed and be taken to, be buried at the National Heroes Acre in Harare, Zimbabwe. Don't disturb the dead. Just let the dead be. Let Mugabe be. Let him rest. Okay. So the latest from Guinea, ECOWAS leaders went to Guinea on Saturday, and it's very interesting that the opposition opposition leaders, they're very happy. So they're saying, this coup that happened, that removed President Alpha Conde, is a very welcome development. So they're urging ECOWAS not to impose any economic sanctions against Guinea. Remember, ECOWAS already removed Guinea from the bloc. But now they're saying, those sanctions should not be extended, especially the economic sanctions. And also African Union, removed Guinea from it. And so right now, I think Guinea has been left but that was expected. Yeah, that was expected. You can't be a member of the African Union if you're being led by a military. So that was expected. And also ECOWAS, we've seen them do that even in other countries that, coups have happened before. They've moved in quickly and they've removed these countries from this bloc. So the junta, they seem to be doing pretty well so far. So they're supposed to be meeting, I think, tomorrow. They're supposed to be meeting with the different groups, religious groups, civil society groups, and other business groups, and they want to see how they can have a transition as a country. As you speak, the constitution has been suspended. Same case in Mali. I think same case in where else has the constitution been suspended? I think in Chad. Is it Chad? Right? Yeah, I think so. I think so. And in Chad, we saw some protesting happening over the weekend because the protesters are marching against the junta in Chad, who took over power after the death of his father, or in April, Muhammad Idris Deby Itno. He took over, and so they were saying this has all the underworkings of France, and this is very true. Because we saw how France moved in very quickly, how even Emmanuel Macron was present during the burial of Muhammad Idris. Chad and France, they've been coordinating, especially when it comes to the fight against extremist militants in the Sahel region. So Chad is a very important partner in that region, but also they do have other, relations. We know, Chad is a former colony of France, right? And so we've seen, everything that has been happening in Chad, it has been the underworkings of France. We've seen France moving, and essentially people are saying, hey, we feel like it's France which is leading us in this country. And this junta was imposed to us by force. The father was killed. And then you go get the son who was serving in the army at that time, and he was quickly bestowed as the transitional president. They're not talking about elections. And, as citizens in Chad are saying, okay, we need to know what's really happening. And we are tired of France poking and taking control over our internal issues, and this will be an interference of our sovereignty. So they accuse France of being behind the junta, and marchers were chanting, Chad is not a kingdom, and no to French support for the Deby father and son system. They're saying enough is enough. Give us an opportunity as the people of Chad to elect a leader that we want. Do not keep imposing to us as somebody that we do not want. I remember Deby had been a president since 1990, so he had been there for a very long time, and then he's killed. Now his son is the president. He's the interim president there in Chad. So they're saying this is not a monarchy. This is not a kingdom. We're a democratic state, and so we need to enjoy those rights without France interfering with our affairs there. So that is that. Killings in Nigeria and the insecurities also continue. And the latest from Kaduna State, where last evening 12 people were killed, and I think there was so many news about this, I couldn't get enough of that. But I think it's a very sad state of affairs. Also, kidnappings happened over the weekend. Also, I don't know what else happened. Banditry also took place over the weekend there in Nigeria, and so many people lost their lives. And President Buhari met last week with his security leadership in the country. I don't know what the details of that meeting was, but I was hoping by now, perhaps how the country is handling its security would have changed. But I think that hope was stretched, far-fetched, because we've seen in the past they've met, but nothing really happened. So anyway, so President Buhari, I guess, has tweeted another message of condolences and condoling with the family, and then that's it. And yet he's the person who has the responsibility and has the capability, that can really put measures in place to protect the people of Nigeria, and he does nothing. You know, it's amazing how he's still the president of Nigeria. That amazes me, sitting here every day and reading this information of insecurity after insecurity after insecurity, and the country that seems to be not know what to do with itself anymore. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. Bismarck Bura, what matters in Guinea is what the ordinary Guineans want. AU and ECOWAS outbursts are meaningless if it doesn't serve the interests of Guinean people. Yeah, and it's interesting because you've seen the reaction even of the people themselves. What we saw were celebrations. Of course, there were a section of people who were not very happy, but they did not even come out to protest that their president has been disposed. They're just, so people are, it's like Guineans were tired. First of all, Alpha Condé forced himself to them for the third time. All right. So they were like, maybe not. So, yeah, I think a lot of Guineans were tired of Alpha Condé. So that's why you see it doesn't even seem as though there was a coup that happened in Guinea. People are back to their normal lives. I think they're just waiting to see who will become the president. And it seems to be a welcome relief, which is you know. So we are hoping that Alpha Condé is okay. ECOWAS was there over the weekend. They said they saw the president, the former president rather, and it seems to be in great spirits. So hopefully he's fine. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Diaspora Dispatches. I'll see you again here tomorrow, God willing. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye for now.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.